if Hollow Knight? Silksong looks amazing but also slightly terrifying in terms of time commitment. Constance might be exactly the size and stress level you're looking for, which is hilarious because it's literally a game about burnout. You're in a painted mind palace, fighting your own exhaustion with a paintbrush and a dodge button. The question is simple: is this a must-play Metroidvania or just Hollow Knight but vibes and feelings? Constance is a 2D action adventure from Burnout coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series and Switch. You play as Constance, an artist whose mental health has pretty much fallen into the negative zone. The world is her mind, cracked but beautiful. Circuses in the clouds, libraries full of astronomical gear, surreal spaces that look whimsical until you notice how broken everything is. Right up front, the game warns you it's dealing with anxiety, depression, and burnout, but it doesn't wallow. The tone is more gentle gallows humor and kindness than constant emotional gut punch. Moment to moment, this is classic Metroidvania DNA. You're jumping, dashing, juggling enemies, and unlocking new abilities that turn old areas into fresh playgrounds. The twist is the paintbrush. Everything you do is tied to paint. Your air dash, your spike bounce, your special attacks. There's a paint meter that refills quickly when you're grounded, but here's the clever part. Run that meter dry and the game lets you keep going, at the cost of your health. Mechanically, it's an elegant risk-reward system. Thematically, it's the devs literally saying, yeah, you can keep pushing through burnout, but you're burning yourself to do it. It's one of those rare cases where the mechanics are the metaphor. Combat itself isn't super complex on paper. You're doing directional slashes, dashes, and occasional inspiration buff that adds extra effects. What sells it, according to all 3 reviews, is the feel. There's a nice pushback on hits, so every strike has weight, and the dash through enemies move turns fights into this rapid hit-and-run rhythm. DualShockers straight up says the game feels fantastic to play once your kit is unlocked, and GameSpot praises how quickly you fall into that paint and slash flow once you understand the toolset. It's not reinventing Metroidvania combat, but it is smoothing out a lot of friction. Where Constance really flexes is in platforming and bosses. GamesRadar calls out filler-free pacing and a string of memorable boss fights, and that tracks across the board. The platforming ramps from approachable to, okay, this is getting spicy in the last third, with short, intense challenge rooms built around mixing moves. Bouncing off spikes, chaining dashes, clearing corrupted walls with your brush, and thinking 3 inputs ahead. For some players, that's the good stuff. For others, those late-game gauntlets are going to feel like a skill check the game didn't advertise up front. On top of that, there's the Puppet's Curse-style respawn system. Every time you die, you can either kick back to your last checkpoint or revive right where you fell with all enemies in that area buffed. Roughly 50% more health and harder hits. It's a simple twist with a lot of tension. Got a checkpoint just a room or 2 back. You might accept the curse and push through. Realize that checkpoint is half a biome away. Suddenly that just revive here button looks a lot more tempting even if it makes the next few rooms meaner. GameSpot in particular loves how this mirrors the central theme. Are you going to push it and make life harder or take a breather and reset? Not everything in the difficulty department is universally loved though. Quick spoiler for one mid-game sequence in 3, 2, 1. There's a big giant maw chase section that multiple reviewers side-eye. GamesRadar actually calls it phenomenal, a standout highlight. GameSpot and DualShockers are less into it, saying it tips over into trial and error and artificial difficulty, where you die more to memorizing the route than actually mastering your toolkit. That's a good snapshot of Constance overall. When it's tuned just right, the difficulty feels like a perfect metaphor for grinding through burnout. When it's a bit off, it can feel like the game is wasting your time to prove a point. Story-wise, you're going to see a pretty big split in the coverage. GamesRadar is high on it, calling the mental health story well told, and even praising the ending as a chef's kiss moment. DualShockers also loves the narrative angle, especially how each of the 4 main tier memories peels back another layer of Constance's real-world stress. Bad work situations, toxic teachers, the constant feeling of never being good enough. For them, it's powerful, relatable, and refreshingly direct about topics games usually dance around. GameSpot, on the other hand, likes individual story beats, but thinks the non-linear structure hurts the emotional through line, and really doesn't rate the NPCs or side quests. Characters feel more like lore delivery devices than actual people. The optional quests rarely reward you with anything meaningful, and the overall narrative impact fades as you get deeper into pure platforming and boss mode. Exploration is another point of disagreement. On the positive side, the map tools are surprisingly slick. You get a clear layout, can spot unvisited exits if you look closely enough, and there's even a snapshot feature where you can pin little screenshots to the map to remember puzzles or quest spots. You can overlay a tiny thought bubble minimap on top of your character, which is such a smart quality of life touch. I now want it in every Metroidvania. The downside, as DualShockers hammers on, is that the actual rewards for exploration are pretty basic. Health and paint upgrades, crystals for passive buffs, and not much in the way of wild secret bosses or juicy lore drops. If your favorite part of the genre is stumbling into bizarre optional encounters or totally broken weapons, Constance is more conservative. It's more about clean, focused routes and less about sprawling, secret-packed labyrinths. In terms of length and pacing, Constance is short by Metroidvania standards, but intentionally so. GamesRadar finished around 14 hours at about 3/4 completion, and called out how nice it is to have a game that doesn't overstay its welcome. You get a solid arc, a bunch of bosses, a full toolkit of abilities, and then credits. Number 40-hour cleanup operation, no endless post-game. That's either a huge plus, or you're going to be that person in the comments typing EX for 12 hours. Me, while ignoring how much junk padding most of us tolerate. So where does that leave Constance in the genre pile? Review-wise, it's sitting in that 7 to high 8 range. GameSpot more cautious at a 7, DualShockers sitting at 8.5, GamesRadar clearly loving it even if they don't slap a number in your face. The consensus is pretty consistent. Stunning hand-drawn art, excellent boss design, tight platforming, smart mechanics that actually back up the mental health theme, and some rough edges in exploration and narrative cohesion. If you want a Metroidvania that feels like Hollow Knight's friendlier, more contained cousin, the one that still makes you sweat but doesn't demand weeks of your life, this is absolutely worth your time. If this kind of no BS breakdown is your thing, hitch a ride with Veteran Game and hit subscribe. And if you've ever tried to puppets curse your way through Burnout in real life, toss a like so this video doesn't get buried by the algorithm while it's out of paint. I'll leave you with this. Is it enough for a Metroidvania to be a tight 12-14 hour emotional gut check with great bosses, or has the genre trained us to expect massive secret stuffed epics every single time?